film A Clockwork Orange, 1971, directed by Stanley Kubrick, begins in a dystopian future where societal decay and disorder are palpable, and the line between good and evil becomes increasingly blurred. Set in a grim, hyper-violent world, the story follows a young delinquent named Alex DeLarge, played by Malcolm McDowell, and his gang, the Droogs, as they indulge in acts of unprovoked violence and mayhem. The film opens with Alex and his Droogs, Pete, Georgie, and Dim, at the Korova Milk Bar. This place, designed with an unsettling futuristic aesthetic, serves as their base of operations. Alex introduces himself as the leader, a charismatic yet deeply disturbed figure. His voice, smooth and persuasive, narrates the entire story in the first person, making the audience see the world through his eyes. He speaks directly to the camera, creating a sense of connection with the audience, while his actions remain cold and indifferent to human suffering. Alex's world is one filled with violence, chaos, and rebellion against authority. The film's setting, a dark and bleak urban landscape, reflects the corrupt and fractured society in which Alex thrives. It's a world where law enforcement is ineffective, and young criminals like Alex reign supreme, creating fear and tension in every corner of the city. The Droogs, while sharing in Alex's chaotic behavior, are all distinctive characters in their own right. Pete, Georgie, and Dim are loyal followers, yet they each have their moments of doubt and weakness. Alex, however, is the undisputed leader, using his intelligence and wit to manipulate his gang members and maintain his control. His behavior is characterized by his love for violence and sadism, coupled with a disturbing sense of enjoyment. This sets him apart as both a product of a fractured society and a symbol of its failure to control youthful aggression. Soon after, the Droogs leave the milk bar and embark on a spree of violence. The first act of brutality they commit is against a school teacher, a seemingly random victim who is simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. They attack him in a brutal and unprovoked manner, laughing and mocking the teacher as he cries out for help. Alex's sadistic pleasure in the violence is evident, and this sets the stage for the pattern of violence that will continue throughout the film. Alex's life of violence continues until a betrayal from within his own gang leads to his arrest. Dim, one of his Droogs, turns on him, and Alex is caught by the police. He is sentenced to prison for his numerous crimes. As he serves his time, Alex becomes aware of an experimental treatment called the Ludviko technique, a form of aversion therapy aimed at reforming criminals by conditioning them to feel intense nausea and revulsion at violent acts. It is here, in prison, that Alex's fate begins to shift. The Ludviko technique is seen as a new hope for reforming the society's criminals. The procedure is seen as a way of controlling violent behavior through psychological manipulation, and Alex becomes one of the first subjects of the experiment. His time in prison is marked by increasing despair as he realizes that his options for freedom are limited. Alex, who once reveled in his power and control, finds himself completely at the mercy of the system.
Alex's time in prison is not without its own brutal moments. The film uses a mixture of physical and psychological torture, highlighting the stark contrast between Alex's former life of violence and his current life of helplessness. During his time in prison, Alex encounters a priest who initially tries to comfort him by discussing the morality of his actions. However, Alex remains unmoved, showing no remorse for his past deeds. The priest's words, however, begin to plant the seeds of doubt in Alex's mind, making him question his actions. This inner turmoil becomes the precursor to the events that will unfold later in the film. As the Ludviko technique becomes available, Alex volunteers for the treatment, hoping it will lead to an early release from prison. The procedure, which involves subjecting Alex to extreme psychological conditioning, is depicted in a chilling manner. Alex is forced to watch violent films while his eyes are held open by mechanical devices. His body is pumped with drugs that induce nausea, and he is made to associate his violent tendencies with intense physical discomfort. The experiment is intended to turn him into a non-violent individual, but it also strips him of his autonomy and personal will. Through the Ludviko technique, Alex's once carefree enjoyment of violence is replaced with crippling aversion. He becomes incapable of acting violently without experiencing overwhelming nausea and distress. The transformation is both physical and psychological, and it turns Alex from a sadistic delinquent into a helpless, reformed individual who can no longer defend himself. The film's disturbing portrayal of this process reveals the harsh consequences of attempting to cure someone of their violent nature without regard for their humanity. It also raises questions about the ethical implications of using such extreme methods to manipulate human behavior. As the film progresses, it becomes clear that Alex's transformation has stripped him of his identity and sense of self. No longer the bold leader of his gang, Alex is now a passive victim of the system, unable to act in the way he once did. This marks a crucial turning point in the film, where the lines between free will, control, and morality become increasingly blurred. As Alex's transformation through the Ludviko technique takes full effect, the consequences of his new, non-violent state begin to unfold. His body reacts with intense nausea at the very thought of violence, which once was his greatest pleasure. But now he finds himself at the mercy of the same society he once dominated. Stripped of his ability to defend himself, he becomes vulnerable to those who once feared him, and his world becomes a dark, unrecognizable place. The first major consequence of Alex's new condition comes when he's released from prison. At the time of his release, Alex is no longer the rebellious, dangerous delinquent he once was. Instead, he is a broken man, unable to engage in the behaviors that once gave him power and control. But instead of being welcomed back into society, he finds himself rejected, abandoned, and victimized. Alex is now an easy target for those who once feared him. One of the most poignant moments of Alex's downfall occurs when he encounters his former gang members, Pete, Georgie, and Dim. The relationship dynamics have shifted drastically since Alex's imprisonment and subsequent reformation. No longer a feared leader, Alex finds that his droogs have moved on without him, and his once loyal followers now see him as weak and helpless. The scene in which Alex is attacked by his former gang is symbolic of his total loss of power. The violence he once so freely dished out is now turned back on him. But this time, Alex cannot defend himself. His body recoils in agony as he is subjected to the very violence that once gave him pleasure.
Following this confrontation, Alex is subjected to more brutal events. The film's portrayal of the justice system and societal institutions becomes increasingly cynical. Alex is helpless, unable to escape the cruelty of the world around him. One of the most harrowing moments occurs when Alex is taken in by a group of homeless men who, upon recognizing him from his previous life of violence, proceed to taunt and humiliate him. The contrast between Alex's previous persona and his current vulnerability is stark and unsettling, as he is forced to endure the same mistreatment he once inflicted on others. In the midst of this turmoil, Alex is offered an opportunity for redemption. The film's critical turning point occurs when Alex finds himself in a desperate situation where the only way to survive is to make a choice to reclaim his sense of self, no matter the cost. This moment of decision is both literal and metaphorical. Alex's journey is no longer just about his transformation into a good citizen through the Ludviko technique. It's about his reclaiming his humanity and making a decision about what kind of person he wants to be. The message of the film becomes clear. No one can be forced into morality. True change must come from within. The final scenes of A Clockwork Orange explore Alex's search for meaning in a world that no longer recognizes him. After enduring physical and emotional trauma, he eventually arrives in a moment of self-reflection. For the first time, Alex expresses a desire for a different future, one in which he can start anew. His yearning for a better life, free from the horrors of his past, reflects a deep human need for redemption. Yet, as the film ends, the audience is left with a sense of ambiguity. Does Alex's newfound desire for change mean that he is truly reformed, or is he merely seeking a return to the violence and power he once knew? Kubrick's decision to end the film on this uncertain note leaves open the question of whether true change is possible for someone like Alex. In many ways, the film's conclusion serves as a commentary on the cyclical nature of violence and the impossibility of forcing change on an individual without considering their humanity. Alex's story raises important questions about free will, the nature of evil, and the moral responsibilities of both individuals and society. As the credits roll, the audience is left to grapple with these questions, unsure of whether Alex will ever truly change. The tragic irony of A Clockwork Orange is that despite the government's attempts to cure Alex's violent tendencies, they ultimately strip him of everything that made him who he was. The film suggests that forcing someone to conform to a societal ideal, even under the guise of reform, may not lead to a better world. Instead, it may only result in the destruction of individual agency and the perpetuation of a broken system. In conclusion, A Clockwork Orange presents a chilling exploration of the consequences of trying to control human behavior through extreme measures.
Through the character of Alex DeLarge, Kubrick challenges our understanding of morality, free will, and the nature of violence. The film's ambiguous ending leaves the audience with lingering questions about whether true reform is possible, or if individuals like Alex are doomed to repeat their past mistakes. The dystopian world of A Clockwork Orange serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of authoritarian control and the need for personal agency in shaping one's own destiny.